Baubles on a lot here with the Outsiders.
Hello, Patriots. Because you are all Patriots, we've checked. You're listening to what used to be known as First Dog on the Moon's Guide to Modern Living. I'm still Walkley Award-winning political cartoonist for The Guardian Australia, First Dog on the Moon, but this is my last show. Next week at this time, we'll bring you Larry Pickering's Guide to Drawing Women in Various States of Sexual Denigration. Because this week, in a parliamentary maiden speech, a One Nation senator declared that the ABC had abandoned patriotism. It seems SBS and the ABC serve only immigrants and Indigenous Australians, you know, those people. Accordingly, the ABC should be replaced with the Patriotic Broadcasting Network. Good evening, comrades. Welcome to tonight's televisual entertainment. You may all resume your seats. Tonight on PBC One, 7:30 continues its 27-part investigation into wind farms and cultural Marxism. You know it makes sense. This will be repeated at 8:30, 9:30 and 10 p.m. for South Australian viewers. At 8 p.m, laughs for the entire family structure with I'm not a climate scientist, but neither is Tim Flannery. Tonight, we speak to climate scientist Barnaby Joyce. And that's followed by Antiques Roadshow.
Drive on!
Yes, join Alan Jones as he travels the country in his palanquin, hurling epithets and rotten fruit at the destitute.
You there, you sir, yes, poodle faker, strumpet, take this. Oh, thank you, sir.
And then on PBC2, Jared and the Hendersons. Tonight, Jared discovers his housekeeper Betty is in fact a German climate scientist from Venezuela. When Ray Hadley drops by with Denby, his injured alpaca, hilarity ensues. And that's followed by classic cooking in Pauline's Kitchen. Tonight, Master Chef or Master Race. In this mystery box challenge, contestants have to cook the census figures to prove Muslim immigration is ruining the country while creating a delicious vanilla slice. Later in Grand Designs, Andrew Bolt tells of his plan to eradicate the new racism, dam the Murrumbidgee and turn the rivers inland. And don't forget, yes, it's Bogan's Heroes. Colonel Abetz and his wacky crew of POWs spend the culture wars pulling the wool over the eyes of their clumsy elitist oppressors. Don't forget, citizens, you will catch up on any unmissed entertainment opportunities using P-View. Catch up on the full series of Bolt versus Wild. Will Andrew drink his own urine in order to survive as he intrepidly noses the Range Rover outside Melbourne's eastern suburbs? Or will he be saved by the power of opera? Finally, the Rowan Dean Comedy Hour. The editor of The Spectator Australia lines up the usual suspects for hilarious satirical thrashing. The jokes just do not end as Rowan and his crazy crew of state-sponsored funsters put paid to the idea that Conservatives are completely and utterly incapable of producing even vaguely funny satire. It's time to punch down and hilariously mock Aboriginal people dying in custody, anyone with a disability, blondes, Muslims, and FYI, gays are the same as Nazis. Oh, the fun never ends. To the weather now, here's Malcolm Roberts.
Tomorrow's forecast is for both rain and passing chemtrails right across the country. So don't forget your umbrella and your tin-foil hat.
Thanks, Malcolm. This has been First Dog on the Moon's Guide to Modern Living. You're welcome, Australia.
And that's it for Sunday Extra this week. The podcast is there on the website.
Yeah, okay. It was one of those weeks. I can't believe that Donald Trump is actually surprised that all these old gropings and molestations are coming back to haunt him. It's like, he sort of reminds me of pedophiles who take advantage of a situation of temporary empowerment to sort of express their twisted sexuality onto a child without taking account of the fact that that child is going to grow up one day and work out for himself what was going on and do something about it, as in disclose or lay a complaint with the police or just kill themselves with despair. But the kids will grow up and do something about it. In the same way, if a man makes a habit of grabbing a hold of strange women in elevators and on airliners and in office situations, and he thinks that because he's rich he can, does he not expect that one day they're going to grow up? I mean, look what happened to Rolf Harris. Now, he spent 40 years or more using his social power within society to molest people sexually. And finally, it all came back and bit him on the arse. And he's a geriatric looking at stripy sunlight in a British jail because of it. Who knows? Maybe somebody will come up with some claims that are substantial enough and provable enough that Donald Trump will finish up in jail. Maybe there's enough moral and ethical character left in the American electorate that people will vote against him rather than support him for his macho behaviour. He says it's locker room behaviour. He's selling the idea that it's normal for men to talk like that amongst themselves when there's no women around. Well, I was born with a Y chromosome, so I know a little bit about being a man. And I've always been on the outside edge of any group I ever tried to be a part of, so I know a little bit about what normal men are like because I don't actually fit in with them. And I know that there is a subspecies, like it's a nesting set situation, and not all men are misogynistic predators, but some men are misogynistic predators, and not all misogynistic predators are men, because there are some pretty nasty lesbians out there too. However, Donald Trump is speaking as if he has never ever questioned the righteousness of thinking and talking and behaving in the way that he's being proved to behave, as well as talking and thinking. I mean, he's on a bus, he's got a couple of fawning reporters at foot, quivering with pleasure at everything that he says. So he speaks like that. Yeah, okay, fine. But then after years, decades of living in fear that they wouldn't be believed, and therefore individually staying quiet, once the shit hits the fan, all of a sudden there's this upwelling of women all across the country, all across the timeline, who've had the misfortune of Donald Trump encountered their lifetime and their personal bubble. He bought a bloody beauty contest so that he could have the privilege of walking in on the half-naked beauty contestants in their dressing room while changing from ball gown to swimsuit or whatever it was. This is how the man lost $950 million. And the only reason that he needed to lose $950 million was because his father gave him a lot of money. He inherited a lot of money and he didn't want to pay tax on the interest of the money that his father had left him. So to have no tax, he just invested in stupid shit that he administered really badly, and he didn't care if it went broke because the whole idea was to go broke because he didn't want to pay tax. So for 18 years, he paid no tax because he lost $950 million. That's what sort of a businessman he is. You want to make a small fortune? Start off with a fucking big one and do something stupid with it. Like there's sheep farmers and wheat farmers all over Australia who can tell you that story. There are people who've tried to set up little small feeder airliners and charter air operators businesses who can tell you about that. Start with a big fortune, and you can make a little fortune out of it by just doing something that won't work commercially. And until you go broke, you can have your name up in lights, you can have advertising, you can have employees, you can have all sorts of stuff. And finally, when the money runs out, you go bankrupt. Or the company that you've been getting paid to operate goes bankrupt, and it owns all the debts, and you've corporatized it, so your personal fortune is untouched. It's the logical result of allowing corporate entities to exist in the commercial sphere of operations. If the Europeans had never ever permitted a corporate structure to exist and isolate the shareholders from the consequences of the corporation's activities in attempting to make money, then we wouldn't be in this fucking mess. But we are in this mess. We're facing the prospect that maybe there are enough male chauvinist pigs in America who are enthusiastic about Trump. And maybe there are enough people in America who had a complete gutful of the established way of running things economically, who think that Trump is something different, therefore he'll be an improvement. And maybe, just barely, possibly maybe, he is going to win the election and get a hold of a box of nuclear launch codes. And that's a truly scary, scary, scary thought. For light relief, did you hear about Barnaby Grass? It's not a new breed of marijuana, sadly. Barnaby Grass was some hybrid, genetically engineered, slightly maybe perhaps winter fescue, which was developed in the New England by an agricultural company. And they thought that they could curry some political favour by calling it Barnaby Grass. And the whole point of Barnaby Grass was that it was engineered not to have any endophytes, whatever the hell endophytes are. They're apparently not good for the stock that eats it. So they developed this grass and they grew lots of it and they harvested it and they played with it and they came up with hundreds of tons of it. I think it was 500 tons, but it might have been 5,000 tons. And they sold it or had it up for sale on the strength of the idea that there was no epiphytes in Barnaby Grass. It was just such a marvellous new high-tech illustration of agricultural broadacre technology. Lots of lols in that one. So anyway, the people bought it and started sowing it and then started actually testing what they were growing. And lo and behold, Barnaby Grass was full of these epiphytes that it was allegedly not going to have in them. And they've had to recall the lot. And that made the rural news in northern New South Wales on Thursday. I was listening to the local ABC AM station while I was taking my mother's Honda Jazz to Armidale to have the hand grenade removed from the steering wheel. Isn't that a funny idea? They built cars that progressively turned the gas generator cartridges in the steering wheel airbag into a fragmentation grenade, so that instead of going off with a pop and stopping you from hitting your head on the windscreen, the gas generator cartridge would fragment into a lot of little metal pieces and chop your face to shreds if you dared to have a car accident. So yeah, the old girl's car got recalled and I had to go to Armidale and I had to listen to the ABC radio on the way there and back. And that was what I heard. Barnaby Grass has been recalled because it was all bullshit. Barnaby Grass was bullshit. Yeah, and while I was down there, I discovered that there's more commercial activity in one side of one half of the Glen Innes main street on a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock than there is in the whole of the Armidale Central Business District on a Thursday morning at 11 o'clock. Armidale has commercially died in the arse. Half the mall is deserted. The arcades are mausoleums, monuments to the memory of when there was a commercial operation happening in Armidale Main Street. If that's what building big shopping centres does, what a silly idea. And that's the other part of it. Both the big shopping centres, which have squatted in, around the old CBD, full of empty shops and bugger all customers and a generalised decrepit air of failure. So, life's like that. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.